Hello, my name is Dr. Nicole Belisle, and I use the pronouns she, her, and at SDSU, I serve as the Associate Chief Diversity Officer for Strategic Initiatives. And within that role, I wear many hats, but the title that I have that is probably most applicable to this conversation is Mom, or as my kids jokingly say, Dr. Mom. I have two energetic and inquisitive children. My oldest, Avery, is 10 and a half, and my youngest, Jeremiah, is my 9-year-old son. So those two are my heart and soul, but also the reason why I dye my hair over my gray hairs. So I'm happy to be invited into this conversation and to speak a little bit more briefly on motherhood, but also on ways that I can share about addressing moments of boredom. But I do want to share one particular experience that I think is really powerful, what has been powerful for me. So while not necessarily a journey that I would recommend for everyone, I started my doctoral program when both my kids were under the age of 2. The only way I was able to complete my program was because of the support network that I had in place with my partner, my family, and my friends. Those were definitely tough days and nights filled with lots of diapers and, of course, reading. I remember working part-time at one point and reading them academic writing as bedtime stories. It would be putting all of us to sleep at different points in time. But I share my experience because as a mom, we always want the best for our kids. And we do a lot to sacrifice for them in order for us to be able to give them the best experience, the best childhood we possibly could. And so for me, it was incredibly important to teach by example that hard things are worth doing and that their efforts worth the sacrifice. And so I just like to share that bit because that, sometimes it seems like looking back on it, I don't know how I made it through the day. I don't know how I made it to where I am now when they're a little bit older and more self-sufficient. But this is just a reminder for those that perhaps have younger children that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Even though I'm now into a different phase of motherhood, where I now have preteens, and that's a whole new thing. And I'm sure that those that may have teenagers or even older are probably saying, oh, buckle up, you've got a whole lot left. There's still much more to experience. So just want to at least share that little bit and recognizing where I am in sort of all of those phases. So I am now going to share a slide or two because I have an example that I'd like to share. So skip this slide and go to the craft exchange. So the main topic of this talk or conversation is how to stave off boredom, particularly during winter break, but even potentially during other anytime really. But one example that I have experienced was a craft exchange. The main concept is collective projects. So one group of mom friends I was a part of decided to create a Facebook group and work together to create a huge collection of crafts for our children. This relied on our communal commitment as well as our communal creativity. It also was non-creative proof in some ways. So the task was simple. Step one was really gather interested people, assign one project per child participating to the parent or caregiver, create a checklist that each participant can add the name of their project. So if I wanted to make at the time it was for toddlers, or, there were like 3 and 4. So really thinking about popsicle stick homes, or, making things out of Play-Doh, different types of snowmen, glitter, a Play-Doh, all that fun stuff. Little things like that, but those we would name them and add them to the list. So each participant or parent, caregiver would find a project or more, depending on how many children they were participating. They had participating. So for example, I had to identify 2 since I had 2 children participating. So find something that was simple or something that they could replicate. Then they would add the project to the checklist, make sure that there were instructions to how to complete the project itself, and a copy. So say, for instance, there were 30 children who were participating, then you would want to make sure that there were 30 copies of the instructions. The next part gets a little tricky, but I think it was, you think about it, it's easier to do one project multiple times than doing multiple various projects. So essentially you would buy supplies, enough supplies for as many children who are participating. And in the example that I'm using, there's 30. So if you were going to make Play-Doh, you would not only purchase the supplies for 30, enough for 30 different children to do the project, but then you would separate it out. So then that way you would give just enough in a baggie or a paper bag for one child to do that project. So it's enough Play-Doh, for example, to be able to do it. And then so on a date and then the next step is, so on the day that's identifying the day for the craft exchange, and then, whether you can have a pile or I think some people had like a reusable grocery bag, something that they can take with them. Some also had a large paper bag that is sort of identified the pile. And for the 30 children who were out, then they would drop one of, I brought in 2, so I would walk through the line twice with each of my different crafts, and I had one of each project into each of those piles. And really this allowed for a couple of things. So I tried to put it on the screen for just a second, so at least it's easier to read. So this allows for a child participating to have multiple ready-to-go crafts. The year we participated in this craft, as I had said, there were over 30 crafts for each, 30 crafts for each of my children, ready for them to assemble and complete. I only had to prepare 2 different crafts for each participant. This utilized, as I said, also collective participation, creativity, and financial support. It was all organized online, and even coupons for some supplies were shared in the space. This worked when my kids were younger, but I think it could still be applicable with some intent to make it more age appropriate. Maybe some complexity, maybe some Lego things. I don't know, some building components, some challenges. This is definitely something that you could get really creative or be very intentional about what that would look like for whatever age group that you're really catering to. My kids went through them very fast, and they enjoyed creating many things to display around the space, especially during the holiday season, since they were, at the time, it was very holiday season oriented. So I just want to share an important reminder, though. I hope that was useful, but I want to share one reminder in addition, that as we think about our time during the holidays or any breaks that we have, our time is limited and we have so many competing priorities. Our kids are constantly craving our attention. And if you can't have the quantity of time that you want or wish for, just reminding you that the time that you do have to spend with them, make sure that that time is quality. They will appreciate anything that you are able to give them. I'm also happy to answer any questions you might have about this craft exchange, my experience with it, mothering through a doctoral program, or really anything else. I truly hope this was helpful for you, and thank you for having me. Bye.